Hello and welcome to the Sunday evening podcast. My name is Eddie Newman and this is the second podcast so far, the second of the year and the second in the Sunday evening podcast history. Welcome if this is the first time that you are joining the podcast, or welcome back and thank you very much for tuning in last week to our first one. I enjoyed it ever so much. It was great to have Robson on the podcast. Hear a little bit about his story, a little about what he's doing, his ambitions, and everything else that he's working on. Again, this week we're going to be having some interesting topics and another wonderful guest that we will get to know a little bit more later on. Now, I am a big non-fan. That could have been put so much better. I am not a big fan of social media. Now, I touched a little bit on this last time, but today I'm going to go into a little bit more because social media. Now, I don't think social media is social, or at least anymore. I remember the first social media I ever went on was probably MySpace. Now, I don't know when that was, 2008, 9, 10. MySpace, the first time connecting with friends, then at school, online. It was quite interesting actually. I liked it. I suppose it was the modern day diary or modern day address book, having people's faces in your contacts list and being able to connect with them. And on MySpace there was this horrendous feature of my 5 best friends. And when you moved a best friend up or down that list, you heard about it, usually through a rather passive or heated message or comment, or however on earth it worked on MySpace. I can't really remember, to be honest. I've always wondered what happened to all the MySpace's account when obviously you can't get on it anymore, but all those horrendous 2008 pictures of selfies in the mirror and edited Eddie in like graffiti writing across the mirror. Oh, it's just horrible. Anyway, in the history books, thank goodness. Now, social media today, I've seen it change so much over the time I've used it since, I would say 2007, 8, 9, not 7, I would say 8. No, it was at secondary school, 8, 9. It was social media. You got to talk to people, chat to people, catch up, and connect with friends at school. Great. And alienate them by putting them at the bottom of your best top 5 friends. I remember I was in a gang at the time, which I'm sure I'll go into again at some point, but I was in a gang at the time, and if the gang members and the top kingpin was not at the top, you were in trouble. You were in for a right. I don't know what would happen to you. You're like beaten up in the gymnasium or something, rather American, or in the locker room. That's American as well. Beaten up somewhere in the school, or more likely after school. Anyway. Today, social media is horrendous. I would say the prime time of my social media usage was when I was doing my magic, when I was doing my shows, and for a long, long time it worked so fantastically. When I was going through youth group with Young Life, connecting with people, making friends, using Messenger, and creating Facebook events, and eventually a Facebook page, a professional page for my magic shows. Now, I remember it took me so long to create one, and I remember thinking after, why didn't I do this 2 years earlier? It would have been such a better way of promoting myself. So anyway, it worked fantastically. Events, you could invite, I don't know how many friends, let's just say 300 friends on Facebook, youth group friends, ex-school friends, whoever you want. I could invite them, promote it, invite them to the event. At the time it was, A Show was my first show, my first public show I did. It was called A Show. And people would see the notification, they'd press join or ignore or not going. And it was brilliant. And I feel like Facebook was so good, and it was a time when you could really utilise its features. Over the years, I saw that feature kind of died down a lot. And I'm not just talking about my show, but for events, it was very useful because you could obviously be invited to weddings, parties, gatherings. To me, that was so important, as I'm someone that just loves bringing people together, joining events, and networking. And it was a really good way of doing that. But over the years, I really saw Facebook event, or Facebook in general, but Facebook events become null and void almost. You would invite 4, 5, 600 people to something, and you'd get two responses, all in interested or maybe or whatever the options are, and that was really disheartening. And in feedback, because I really started looking into it and thinking, well, I'm going to hold this fantastic event, community event, or just hanging out, or go and get a coffee with a few people, invite 20 people, 40 people. You might get 7, 8 people turn up or say yes, fantastic, who's available that day, and then you wouldn't. And I would look into it, and in the end, the feedback I got, and it was just we didn't know about it, or they'd find the event afterwards and say, oh, I wish I'd seen this, or I mean, part of you thinks, oh, maybe they just can't be bothered to come and join you, but knowing the people I was inviting and really having a genuine conversation with them afterwards, it was clear that Facebook was not delivering the notifications, or it would for a split second and then you'd never see it again, or you'd get a reminder 1 hour before the event. And it just feels like I saw the biggest change during promoting my show, because the reach of events, the reach of your posts, the reach of everything was restricted really to a handful of people, and they expected you to obviously pay for sponsored ads, for sponsored events, boost it, do it, do it, do it. And in the end, I did. And to be honest, it did work rather effectively, especially up at the Edinburgh Fringe. I'd promote it, and I'd have people I knew living in Edinburgh telling me that they'd seen my advert, not necessarily through an organic reach of my own posting and of the sort. So that really, yeah, it's interesting, but unfortunate when it gets to events, because that was kind of what Facebook's original draw was for a lot of people, and be able to connect to people. But now that you look at the feed and you might see one real post of, I've achieved this, or, I've just gone on this lovely walk, look at this tree, which is quite interesting because you want to know what your friends are doing. You want to know what your friends like, and, it's interesting. But now when you scroll through 9 videos of people pranking each other and cats falling down the stairs, and then you might come across someone's interesting post, it's just really, it just lost all purpose for me. And will I continue to use it? Maybe on a professional level, just having those professional contacts that I can reach out to, talk to, they're in one place, it's secure, you can share things quite easily. But on a social level, to me, it's useless. I can't say I don't like Facebook because it took over Instagram, but maybe in some ways I can, because since Instagram has been taken over by Facebook, it's kind of going the same way. You really have to be on the good books in terms of Facebook's and Instagram's algorithm to be able to reach people. Unfortunately, if your posts aren't getting a lot of attention on a regular basis, then it's likely the algorithm will put yours as a low interest post, even if your post will be more relevant that day to those watching, which is really unfair, not just for the person posting, but for those you're trying to reach out to. Won't necessarily see your post because they don't like the other 5 posts you've posted of, oh, this has happened in my local area, or this, I'm sick of this. When you're literally saying, oh, come to this party, come to this event, oh, look what I've just done, I passed my driving test, and no one sees it, and it's the sort of thing they would like to celebrate with you, they won't, because it won't allow them. This is a proper rant I've just noticed, but I just wanted to share it, my thoughts from using it as a real first-hand experience. And a lot of people may have, those I've been connected with on Facebook originally, then Instagram, then Facebook, then Instagram, might have been aware that they've probably been added by me about 10 times. And I have had notification of this and comments on this recently about what's happened. Has your account been hacked? Have you got like 10 accounts? what's going on. But the honest answer is I've really been experimenting with both of the platforms. Not Twitter at the moment, or yet. I don't know if I will. It's not. Again, it's not particularly what I'm looking for in my networking agenda. But I've gone back to and fro from Facebook to Instagram, Instagram to Facebook, really just trying to figure out what's best and how can I best reach out to people that I believe would want to see this event or this invitation. To me, Facebook now is pretty much useless. It doesn't work unless you're willing to spend £20 a day boosting ads and even your own private events. It's a shame. It doesn't really work. Messenger is maybe the most useful thing, potentially. Don't really use that anyway. So Instagram, at least the draw with that for me is I can go onto the feed and it is directly my friends' posts. It's directly pages, businesses' posts that I like, I support, I am interested in coming up, and you can look at them and you're just immediately notified rather than have to scroll through 10, 20 spam, rubbishy posts or shared items to then actually see something relevant. I know you can do the whole tuning thing, but who really goes under the bonnet on Facebook and changes all their settings to actually get exactly what you want, only for Facebook to update and reset them all anyway? So, I don't know what your thoughts on social media are. It's obviously very popular. I know other Snapchat, I had that once upon a time. WhatsApp, it's very interesting, really. I think the majority of people are going over to Instagram of all ages. I know originally it was the younger generation going to Instagram, but now it is going more like everyone, all up and down the whole age spectrum, going over to Instagram, looking at it, sharing things, even not sharing things, but just being able to, view their friends' posts, and I think it's good. I just have this horrible feeling Facebook are going to go completely Facebooky again and make it awfully, almost, some users are privileged, some have to pay for views, and we'll see how it goes, but that's where I'm going to be. If you want to connect with me, that's where my personal blog is, and where I've connected with as many people as I have met throughout my life, on just to stay in touch and to be able to network, invite onto the podcast, and so on and so forth. So that's really exciting. In other news, the Three Brothers road trip, I just wanted to do a little shout out to that after having finished the 4-part videos. Well, really it's a 2-part episode, but you've also got the trailer and now the behind the scenes video that I mentioned in the last podcast, which is all the little crazinesses, which is a word soon, that happened behind the scenes on the road trip. Things, camera falling over while balanced in the back of an open top car. It's not that funny, but the tent scenario was the main thing. Building a tent on the side of a cliff, not being notified of the fact an Atlantic storm was rolling in, and then waking up halfway through the night to find the whole tent collapsed pretty much on top of us. Anyway, I'll say no more. If you want to watch more of that, go to the Sunday Evening YouTube channel or type in 3 Brothers Road Trip, which is our road trip video. We are, of course, in lockdown again for the 3rd time in the UK. Now, good in that it's nice to see action of trying to subdue the virus that is apparently mutating or is mutating. We have got the vaccine, which is a hope on the horizon. I just hope those that are saying, we're all stuck inside, we just want to rebel against the government for absolutely no reason, but more just for the sake of it, will please be subdued slightly so that we can just get through this. The more people rebel, the longer it's going to take. We're going to be into the next year. And the irony is, a lot of people are fighting and arguing the case that it's really damaging mental health. And for someone that's just experienced that for the past year, it is horrendous being locked in. It is horrendous being isolated. Mental health is such a big issue and unfortunately will be a result as a result of this lockdown scenario. I hope that by now a lot of people have tried to find and practice measures to be able to ease it a little bit, whether it's going out, whether it's volunteering, whether it's reaching out to people you wouldn't otherwise, even if it's a phone call every day, whatever you need to do. But what I was saying about the irony is that those arguing that case, unfortunately, by rebelling and going out and trying to break the government's idea of lockdown, is actually, I would think, probably extending the lockdown scenario, because the amount of cases spread at illegal parties and rioting and protesting. Let's just get through this together. Be strong, be optimistic. Let's work together for once, instead of everyone has to have a different opinion to someone else, which is useful, which is free, which is natural, which is exciting. But when it's a joint effort, let's just do this. You don't necessarily have to agree with it. Just do it for your fellow friend. And now, it moves very fast, this podcast, I've noticed. I would like to introduce you to a good friend of mine, once a colleague of mine, an incredible photographer, a big enthusiast of everything wildlife, animals, and the natural world, someone I admire and look forward so much to introducing you to. So please welcome to the podcast, our second Sunday evening podcast, Amy. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello.
Hello. Now, I've done a slight introduction for you. I've mentioned that you were a colleague of mine at the wonderful Hertford Theatre in Hertford.
Yes, for a good couple of years.
Good couple of years. I must have started in 2015, and then worked with you for, as you say, a couple of years. Front of house, cafe, bar, and it was really fun, actually.
Yeah, and then you left us.
I wasn't going to mention that, but
Yeah.
yes, I moved on into other things, but I really, really enjoyed working there, and it was a real little family. It felt like.
Yeah, everyone was really friendly. Everyone got on really well.
So yeah, no, it was great. I remember you used to comment on my standing position when I was waiting for customers for some
Because
reason.
everyone else would just like slouch around and wait, and then you'd be like, "No, you've got to stand up straight, hands behind back, ready to go."
I'd been trained to a very, very high standard by Teresa, and I was upkeeping it. She was my customer service and satisfaction
Oh, I miss
tutor.
Teresa. She actually wished me happy birthday today. It was cute.
So yeah, I like that. That's subtle drop there. That is Amy's birthday today as well. So yeah, thank you for joining the podcast on your birthday.
All right.
When
In lockdown, it's,
That's true. That's true. Hopefully, a good way to celebrate.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But no, Amy's been a great support and a fantastic friend over the past lockdown, and the previous lockdown to that. So basically, the whole of lockdown and the COVID pandemic, it's been great we basically reconnected, didn't we? Really, at the beginning of pandemic, after bumping into each other quite a few times and saying, "Oh, we must meet up," as people do.
Yeah, we went for our walks, didn't we? Walked around town. Luckily, it was the first time we met. It was like in the summer,
Yeah.
so it's nice and warm. Whereas now, when we go for a walk, it's freezing.
That's it. I saw on the news this morning that a couple of people travelled 5 miles to go for a walk together in separate cars, parked 2 meters away from each other, and they were fined £200 because they went 5 miles.
Crazy.
And on top of that, they were told off for having coffees because it classed as a picnic rather than an exercise.
Well, that makes no sense. You're still like walking though.
So maybe if it was water, it would have been
Freshen
more.
you up from exercise. Just coffee wakes you up a bit more.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
I don't
I don't know what's going on there. I suppose it's good because it's setting an example, but I think when it comes to that might be a little bit too much.
Yeah, a bit overreacting.
So in the classic podcast style, this goes from topic to topic incredibly quickly. So Amy, how did you bump into Prince Charles?
Oh yeah, that was a random question. I really forgot. Basically, it was in my third year of uni. I had to do my dissertation, so I went to uni at Carlisle in Cumbria, and I travelled over to Ambleside, which is near the Lake District. And yeah, I went there to do my dissertation. Went for my break. Everyone was like standing around, and I was like, "Why are we all standing around?" They were like, "Oh my God, Prince Charles is here." And I was like, "Oh, might as well wait to have my lunch."
Might as well
Wait with everyone. Why not? And then they like only grabbed a couple of us students, and they grabbed me. Everyone had been waiting for hours. I just stood there for 5 minutes, thinking I'll wait with everyone, and then stood us all in the line. And because I was short, they put me at the front. Prince Charles comes out, and I was the only one he spoke to. And everyone else was being away. So like I was waiting for ages. I'm like, got to be short in life, and you stand at the front. And then yeah, he just asked me what course I was on, if I'm enjoying it. I felt really bad because I looked a bit like rubbish because I had to get up at 6 a.m. to get on a coach. So I had my hair back and a hoodie on, and I was like, great. I'm meeting like the future king of the country, and I look like poo.
Well, I'm sure he was in his tracksuit as well, wasn't
And in a suit, on by the looks of it, he looked really orange.
he? It must be an increasing trend, the tanning beds. I like that though. You were there. How long did you say? 5 minutes.
Yeah, they were going out for lunch.
So yeah, that's the way to do it, really. I think there's so many people, I'm sure, across the world that have dreamt all their life to meet royalty, and you just walk down the street and just bump into
No,
them.
well, it was still on campus. I was just leaving the campus, but it's a beautiful campus. It was lovely. I didn't know he was even going to the campus that day. So I was just there for my dissertation, just doing work.
Right.
Crazy.
That's very funny.
That was nearly like 2 years. That was 3 years. Then was it? No, when was that? That was April 2019.
Sure.
Yeah. A while back now. In 2 years.
Well, a lot's changed, and a little bit earlier on in the podcast, I was talking about my not so love for social media, in that I believe it's becoming less and less social, I suppose, and particularly touching on that. I'm sure you've heard about how posts aren't really reaching people, and it's all about the algorithm and how you put up a post and only 20 of your friends see it out of like 600, and because it's all about what the algorithm's basically trying to work out what you like, and it guesses and then doesn't show you certain things. And yeah, to me, it's sort of restricting the original purpose, which was connection. I don't know. What's your main social media that you use, would you say?
That I use?
Yeah.
Maybe Instagram or Snapchat, I'd say.
That's it, isn't it? So
I don't really like Twitter because I find Twitter's just too many, like, not arguments, but like there's too many like feuds or people rant. Right. I don't really like ranting posts that much because I feel like a lot of time it doesn't solve the problem. You're just posting it online and it's irrelevant because it's not doing anything.
Sure.
But
yeah, no, that's.
I know what you mean though. It's like you don't see everyone's post, or it'll be like come up like 4 days later, posted 4 days ago, and I was like, well, what use is it to me now if they posted it 4 days ago?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially
on Facebook a lot. That happens with you. Like, say you post one thing, I'll get all of your posts all in one. I think the other month must have had about 7 or 8 posts, all from you, changing all your photos, cover photos, profile picture, all in one go. And I was like, why does this all come up right now?
Social media purge.
And I like it all, and you're like, I like it all, and you're like, why is she liking all of my stuff? Is she stalking me? I'm not.
Well, I mean, it totally ties in with what I was saying, really, about, especially because I do a lot of it, like event planning and invite invites to events, and people don't end up seeing it. And as you say, you see it like either on the day or 4 weeks later, and it's kind of not that useful when you're trying to invite people to things, or just give general updates. So yeah, I think majority of people are heading over towards Instagram now. That's
I think it's easier because it's just like not so much writing, so you don't get like a massive paragraph and everyone's like, oh, I can't be bothered to read that. It's just like a story and a photo, so then everyone can just look at it straight away. Like
Yeah.
you've not got to like look into it deeply to spend ages reading it or understanding what it says, and just find it easier.
That's it. So basically, Facebook has become archaic and heavy and too much of a sort of spam-filled area. Twitter is just an arena for arguing with the likes of Piers Morgan, and
Donald Trump, well, he's been suspended from it now.
no, say no more. I mean, honestly, that's exactly what we're getting at here, really. I mean, it's not enough positivity, and then you've got Instagram, which is hanging in there, but I don't know what will happen. They'll probably add some feature.
They'll do something to it.
They'll revert they'll switch the images with text, so you've got a massive paragraph with small pictures underneath.
Oh God, could you imagine? I'd be like, no, I'm not reading that.
That's it. People don't go on social media to kind of get stressed. I think you do it to de-stress. So yeah, enough of social media. Anyway, what I wanted to talk about is what you were doing at university and what you do as your passion and your enthusiasm. You do photography, but not just photography but specialised basically, don't you? In wildlife and nature.
Yeah, I studied wildlife media at the University of Cumbria in Carlisle. It was 3 years. It was quite good. It did like photography, filming. It kind of like opened up like the filming side because I like enjoy photography, but at the same time I like doing the filming as well.
Right.
Which was good. But no, since being finished in uni, I did like eco like conservation ranger thing at Pablo Wildlife Park. That was like the summer in 2019, but that was obviously before COVID and stuff. So at the moment, it's just able to go out and just enjoy wildlife, like seeing it for yourself rather than filming and photography.
Yeah.
So I do try to do photography. I'm using my uncle's camera at the moment because I broke mine. But I broke my camera.
I suppose it's something you can even do on your phone, isn't it?
Yeah, I try not to do it on my phone though, because I don't like. I think so many people now just take their photos on their phone, and it's not like appreciated anymore. It's like how much of a nice photo it is. Like people take a picture on their phone of like their dog or their cat, whereas like in the old days, like getting like all set up and like the preparing for the photo, and then they get the great outcome of it. It's just all gone because your phone just does it in 2 seconds. Whereas I kind of enjoy setting up a proper camera.
Doing
it properly, rather than cheating and letting the phone do it all for you.
Yeah, and the results are better.
Yeah, it's more rewarding for yourself as well.
Right. No, absolutely. I mean, I see filmmaking increasingly going over to phones, and there's a lot of companies out there now that give you all the accessories to basically turn your phone into, as I'm sure you know, like as a professional camera as you can. And you sort of think, all this money you've spent, why didn't you just get a professional camera?
Oh, exactly.
So
it makes no sense.
And you're never going to get a sensor size that big in a phone. I mean, well, never say never, but the quality is unmatched. And I mean, your photography, which I've said so many times, is mainly you've got a lot of your portfolio up on Instagram and Facebook that I've seen, and your photography is fantastic.
Oh, thank you. I haven't done much in a while because it was easy at uni because they provide you with all like the brand new equipment.
Right.
Whereas now it's hard. Now I don't have the luxury of using all their equipment. It's a lot harder.
I think I'm just thinking, just off the top of my head, three photos that actually no, four. This is how many photos have stood out to me. Like, especially is that you've got a fantastic photo of a fox that I love. There's one of a tiger. Is it at the top of like almost like a waterfall or like a rock?
Yeah.
Like that? There's one of like this is where my animal knowledge now shows. It's like a sort of tonic blue bird one. I love that against the background. And there's another one which
Which bird?
I don't know what bird it is.
Is it blue or do you think is it the purple one?
Purple. There you go.
I think that's hummingbird.
Oh, it's good to know. During the podcast.
Yeah.
And
I think, don't take my word for it. It was
okay.
a while ago, but I'm pretty sure. And I look thinking about it, the photo you're on about, it looks like a hummingbird.
There's one other one which is some kind of animal in a field.
That narrows it down.
I mean, it's got antlers.
I mean, a
I
deer.
don't know what. Is it a deer?
A red deer.
Right. Okay. We'll go with that.
That's got antlers in a field. I'm pretty sure that'd mean it'd be a deer. Don't know any other animals with antlers in the.
A reindeer or a moose or a.
If I saw a wild moose, I think I'd run. It's scary.
Well, I mean, it's very good anyway, and to me those photos are like the sort of photos you would get in a, National Geographic magazine or. I'm trying to think what the BBC's one is. Is it Countryfile? No, it's not Countryfile.
I mean, it technically can be. Part of Countryfile is nature, like Springwatch and.
Springwatch. There we go.
That's the one you were thinking of.
Yeah. Homes Under the Hammer. No, that's wrong.
Could you imagine?
So, yeah, I mean, if there's people now hearing this that want to check out these fantastic animals that I've described, where's the best place for them to find you?
Probably on Instagram it's Amy Partner Photography. And then it's the same again, the same writing, but for Facebook. But my Facebook ones are more like when I was at college.
Right, yeah.
And like more my studio photos. It depends what people are into. If they like studio photos, then I'd say look more on my Facebook and then more wildlife. There's more on Instagram. But on Facebook, the biggest one I did a studio photo of was the Shetland pony.
Okay, right, yeah.
That was so hard work to try and get a backdrop behind a pony.
That's really odd. It's such an unnatural environment for an animal, isn't it? I suppose.
I like the photographer Tim Flack, and he does like loads of like big animals in a studio. Like he'd build a studio around the animal.
Right.
So he'd done it with like elephants and gorillas and pandas. I'm like, oh my god, I want to do that.
But they love it, and then they go back to their natural habitat, thinking that they're like VIPs.
Exactly. So like I just walk the runway.
all their friends. But no, you also touched on that you are very enthusiastic about wildlife conservation as well.
Yeah, I'd love to do like this conservation work itself, so not just photography.
Yeah,
like, it's all well enough like just taking photos of it, but actually like helping towards it as well as a lot more rewarding. But it's finding stuff at the moment because obviously with the restrictions and stuff, it's hard.
Yeah,
into a job like that at the moment because they're just limiting their staff or can't go abroad either to help. And it's money as well because most conservation things abroad you actually have to pay to do it.
Right. Okay.
Rather than you doing it for free and taking it your spare time makes no sense to me. Why would I have to pay to help free? I don't know. I'd pay for it, but I just don't understand why they charge so much money for people to help.
Yeah, that is a bit odd. when it's so needed in today's world. And I mean,
especially in
recently in
Australia.
Australia,
I think they charge quite either 1,000 to a couple of £1,000 for you to go over and help,
right.
which makes no sense. Maybe I don't know if that's flight included. I don't actually know. I'd hope so. The flight itself would be expensive.
What was it? I mean, David Attenborough, I know, is recently. I think what David Attenborough has recently shown is that just putting images of animals. I know he's involved with a lot of filmmaking and photography, I suppose. The more that the public see animals and see new animals and interesting animals, I think the more the awareness goes up, and then hopefully the more people are a bit more conscious and care a bit more about the environment. I suppose it's sort of linking the two together and showing that our actions as humans do impact these animals.
Yeah, I like David Attenborough does done a lot for the world itself. Like
Mm.
I think he's the only person within that field of work that's like touched not even like the older generation, but young as well. Like because he's 94 now.
94.
Yeah, and you'd think that he'd only appeal to like people over the age of like 50, 60.
Yeah, yeah,
It's like he's still like an inspiration now to quite a younger generation. And I
yeah.
feel always, even when he finally does pass, he'll still be known all
Mm,
the time, everywhere. So,
absolutely.
and he does a wide variety of stuff as well. Like he's done obviously like Planet Earth is most known,
Yeah.
but then he's done like more global warming, like how it's like re-affecting the world.
Mm,
That's quite sad.
mm.
If you're not into like, obviously Planet Earth's obviously just natural, but I think um the Seven Worlds One Planet, that one was quite sad.
Right, right,
Because like it shows you what's happening to the animals now that the global warming's happening.
right. Yeah,
Some of
yeah.
it is really sad. If you see the walrus clip, turn it off. I
Uh,
cried. It's really sad. Mm.
that's super interesting. I mean, I will watch a bit more. I've been very much engrossed this year and last year. Say this year, 2 weeks of it, but mainly last year with Steve Backshall's work. I know he's best known probably for Deadly 60 on
Yeah.
CBBC, but he does a lot of. He recently did something called Steve Backshall Expedition, and it is all about him doing firsts, so climbing this mountain for the first time ever, and like not just him, but ever any human ever on top of this rock or in this cave. And they did this one in the Arctic, and this polar bear was becoming so close to them, getting so close, and they were really upset about it. And it showed him that there's not enough food out there. The ice is breaking, meaning it can't hunt as well. And the last resort is this bear basically trying to eat them. And yeah, in a similar way to what you're saying, really, the animals are having to adapt so quickly to be able to survive.
Like the walrus run, I'm not going to go into like how bad it really is, but basically it's like there's so many of them, and obviously the tide's coming in,
Right.
so they have to climb higher. They're up the rocks
Okay.
to obviously space out.
Yeah.
They can get up, but they can't get down.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It just shows them falling, basically, because they move up the rocks to get room
Yeah.
out. Because where the tides come in, and obviously there's not got much land
Yeah. Yeah.
they used to, and then yeah, it's just quite sad watching them
Tragic.
fall to their deaths. It's quite terrifying. But I could watch it. I had to fast forward it. There's only so much that I can take to watch, and that was horrible. Probably the worst thing I've ever seen.
Yeah. As a result of what we're doing, it's how to link that, isn't it? Like, I mean, it's very well watching. I'm sure David Attenborough does it very, very well, linking it and saying what we can do about it. But you watch these shows, you think, okay, that's on the other side of the world. What's that got to do with me? It's building that awareness, isn't it?
Yeah, hopefully, because he's done that whole Glastonbury thing recently and stuff. So hopefully it is appealing to more younger people.
Yes, yes.
But it was horrible over lockdown in the summer because where we'd been in lockdown in last March, all the beaches were clean. So like also all the
Mhm.
turtles and everything were all
Mhm.
just, coming out and building up their population. And then we come out of lockdown and we just kind of swarm all the beaches.
Wrecked it.
Oh, it was awful.
It's
Oh, it was
crazy.
like,
I
no.
I saw an article about archaeologists sort of digging up a historical site, and the majority of what they found was just like plastic wrappers, and they're sort of calling now the plastic age, and what our legacy will be in however many years' time when people are digging us up, if they are still here. It will just be a load of plastic cutlery and Milky Way wrappers. Um,
Milky Way.
nothing
No,
that interesting.
that's what I'm saying. It's just the world how what it is now to what it used to be. It's just completely different.
Mm. We're at the crucial point though to hopefully be able to turn things around. Hopefully,
Hopefully,
especially with
hopefully when this whole virus is gone, I can do more.
yeah,
Doing
get your photography out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, on billboards with a really sad message across it saying this this gorilla's life is in your hands.
I will.
That's what needs to happen. Finally, just quickly touch upon. I mean, you've obviously been to visited a lot of different zoos for your photography, out of interest, out of your love for wildlife. What is your kind of ideal zoo, good conditions that you would recommend? Because I know there's a lot that you're not massively
Um,
fond of, but what would you recommend and as a good zoo?
I think it's more the enrichments they provide for their animals that I prefer. Like a lot of people put a lot of hate on Paradise Wildlife Park because it's very small.
Okay, yeah, yeah,
But to me, I'd find it Paradise Wildlife Park a hell of a lot better to a zoo compared to like Woburn. Like if
mm,
you look at Woburn, like yeah, the lions have a huge field, but they have nothing to do. They have no climbing frames, no nothing. They
yeah,
just have an open field. Whereas at Paradise, they have rocks, they have like water, they have they have things to do. They always put stuff within the enclosure
see,
for them to have and for them to do. They'll give them like boxes or a ball or something. I know a ball's not something they'd have in the wild, but something for them to like with their claws and their teeth, just get their brain working. So I think for
yeah,
me, it's the importance of the enrichment and obviously what the zoo plans to do. Like obviously they've got to put the animal first rather than their publicity. Whereas like I don't like London Zoo because they do parties and stuff at the zoo in the evenings and have a bar. But to me, that's nothing to do with the animal.
I
If
see,
they're
yeah,
more important, what's better for them if they're more interested in getting more money over the animal, then that's where I think it's a bit iffy. So just a
right,
zoo that focuses more on the animal and the enrichments itself, I guess.
sure. That's interesting. When focus, yeah, you'd assume zoos focuses are on the animal, but
Some
obviously,
zoos aren't, I guess. 'Cause some zoos they have babies. Like I can't remember what zoo it was, but they killed their recent baby giraffe because they couldn't afford to fund it. And then I'm thinking, why would you even get your giraffe pregnant in the first place if you
right,
can't
yeah,
afford to
yeah,
fund it? And I think
business.
the other one I hate the most, the worst in the country I don't like, is Chessington World of Adventures because I don't understand why you need a roller coaster going through the tiger enclosure. To me, that just makes no sense. They would never have a roller coaster with them in the wild. All that noise in general, like, because they're quite loud.
Right,
So
right,
I would have it with them in an
yeah.
enclosure just to make it easier for people to see. There
Well,
was like that one, I don't know if that was in England or America, but that kid that fell into the gorilla enclosure.
yeah,
Did you read about that?
yes, yeah,
Yeah. See, that's another thing. They make the enclosure look better for the public than what they do for the animal. Because in reality, that situation should have never been able to happen in the first place.
no,
Whether it's the
that wouldn't,
parent's fault or the gorilla's fault for dragging the kid around, that situation should have never even got there in the first place
yeah,
for the
that's it.
child to be able to fall into it. If you didn't have an open enclosure, just so the public can see the gorilla better,
Mm.
it'd be different. So doesn't bother me if zoos have enclosures that I can't really see the animal in, because as long as the enclosure, it's like what we were speaking about the other day, the Edinburgh Zoo, like
Yeah,
sometimes have a
yeah,
whole different enclosure for the panda bear, but the female, because the slightest bit of stress, and if she's
yeah,
pregnant, she can miscarriage. So I think it's good that they can just hide her away whenever she needs to be hidden, not just
yeah,
so the public
yeah.
can see her all the time.
A private suite with the ensuite.
Exactly. It's what
Yeah.
every woman needs.
I love that idea of a panda in having a spa when he gets too stressed.
I think we all need that.
That's fantastic. And thank you for your shout out for Chessington. That's one zoo that will never sponsor this podcast now.
No, definitely not.
So, yeah, no, thank you very much. That has been us for today. But I'd just like to once again thank you for coming on, for discussing your love and passion for wildlife, nature, and the other stories you've shared. And lastly, just thank you very much for your friendship and support over this difficult time of lockdown, last year and this.
Thank you as well. It goes both ways. You've been there for me, I'll be there for you. Yeah, we'll have to meet up for a coffee soon.
Definitely, definitely. When it's legal,
Yeah, it shouldn't be illegal to get a coffee.
don't get arrested.
Yeah. What are you
No.
in for? I got a coffee.
Well, thank you very much, Amy. Happy birthday, and we'll speak soon.
Thank you.
Again, another wonderful, wonderful conversation. I'm so glad that we are able to have guests on the podcast, and even in lockdown, we can do it virtually, so it will not be ceased. Now, in response to my question last week about what did 2020 and the pandemic inspire you to do in 2021, or what has it inspired you to do? We had some responses online on Instagram and on Facebook, which I will give instruction for a bit later. But the first one I'd like to mention is Liliana's, who has said that she has last year discovered a love for walking locally, and will be continuing it this year. And I can just say, Liliana, that is a joint interest, a joint inspired activity for myself also. Walking, what an incredible thing. I mean, I've always loved walking, never been someone to not sort of get too tired while doing it, but yeah, the lockdowns and pandemic, and being refined to the home, walking being one of the only freedoms, one of the only, not quite, but being one of the only activities that is still permitted. It's fantastic to utilise that. I'm glad you were able to, and I tried to get hold of a kayak at one point during the lockdowns. Unfortunately, the entire UK sold out, so I wasn't able to. So the next best thing I did was buy a pair of walking shoes, because I thought, really, walking's free. You can do it any time. Do that, invest in that, and that's fantastic. So thank you very much for sharing that. It was absolutely, and anyone thinking about walking, or maybe not really doesn't enjoy walking generally, I would recommend it. Even if it's just a small 10-minute walk around the block. Honestly, the things you see and the thoughts you have. I mean, honestly, what a time for meditation, what a time for prayer, what a time for reflection on the week, just to be able to breathe on your own, or with a friend, or with a partner. It's a great time. You can do so still, even in the UK. You can do so with someone outside of your household, as it's classed as exercising, which it is. Social distance, obviously, still in place with that. You can do it safely, but it's a nice activity to still be able to do in the current climate, which is truly difficult. Absolutely appreciate that. Third lockdown, people are getting pretty sick and tired of it, but if it is for the good and for good in the near future with these vaccines coming, then let's just weather the storm, get through this, and we will achieve great things and be looking back on this as a time of growth, as a time of learning, and also a time of endurance that we did endure. So, secondly, Emmy has said, on that note really, Emmy has said that last year taught her and really showed her that we shouldn't be taking our partners, our husbands, our wives, girlfriends, boyfriends, family, friends, brothers, sisters for granted. Because I think what last year has shown, especially for me, is that easy access of, oh, do you want to meet up for a coffee? Or even, just let's watch a film. It is no longer available for a lot of people, whether it's because you're in different households, whether you've already got a bubble that you can't now override, whether it's long distance anyway and you can't travel across the country or travel to another country to see one another, whether you're now working in a different environment so that your day is shortened even more to spend less time with them. So I totally understand that and totally agree with you, Emmy, that is so important to be appreciating those around us when we have them. And it goes back to that ethic. The ethic I love to share because I've seen it so many times. Do what you can when you can, because you never know what tomorrow will bring, or next week, the next year, or whatever. I'm hoping that this year does bring better news for us and that we see the end of this horrendous pandemic and illness that is unfortunately devastated and changed so many people's lives. So I'm looking forward to seeing what's coming next. For a lot of people, it hasn't been all bad, but a time of newness and a time of experimentation and just changing the way we live, hopefully for good. So there is both sides of it, but I know for a lot of people it has been a real struggle. I can relate to that myself. Just people and community-wise, has been, for me, as someone that's so orientated around community and wanting to integrate and help and do whatever necessary to have fun with people and meet new people. Hence the reason we're doing the Sunday evening podcast, because we can meet and greet and hear from so many different people. This period of time has been so tough, and I've thought so many times that I had about 12 years of my life trying to talk to people, breaking through selective mutism, trying to communicate. That's where the magic came from. It was my way of communication. But to get to the age of 12, to sort of still be building upon it after that until now, at the age of 24, to then be sort of on a roll and then the barrier come down and almost as though totally out of your control, same circumstance of you can't communicate with people. It's horrendous. But I'm trying to use it for the positives, as I'm sure so many people are, like Liliana, like Emmy, that are using the lessons and the inspiration of the tough times to really benefit us in our future and to enrich our experience and love of those around us. Now, in regards to social media, the media, all this crazy stuff, a lot of the time can be quite mediated and not quite, but a lot of, I'm trying to say this in a politically non-biased way, but especially on social media, let's stick with that because that's not really political, so I won't talk about the news or politics, but you get the gist of what I'm saying. A lot of what we see is mediated on social media, so it isn't quite what the reality is or what not and everything else. Now, I know a lot of outlets, which won't be mentioned, have suggested a lot of the time it is all doom and gloom and misery and disaster and upset, and as we've seen, a lot of nice shining lights come through. Now, my question this week to you, which again you can get involved with by going to sundayeveninghello.com on podcast, get in touch and join the discussion. You can either do that on the app now. It has slightly changed from last week just for easier access, either our actual Instagram profile or Facebook page. There will be posts there with these questions that can be answered and put in comments very, very easily without all going through all the access and join group paraphernalia. But this week's question really is to you. How is 2021? How is 2021 going for you so far? I know we're not very far in at the moment. This is only the second Sunday of the year, but how is it genuinely going for you so far? We can look at a lot of outlets and look at a lot of news generally and see that a lot of people are telling us it's not going very well. And in a lot of cases it isn't. But for you personally, how are you feeling about it? Not how you're being told to feel about it, but how are you feeling about it? Are you worried about the rising cases in the UK? Are you happy that you've got a new job? Are you worried that the vaccine won't be rolled out quick enough? Or are you ecstatic at the plans that you're likely to be creating for later in the year that will happen? How are you feeling this year? And we'd love to hear from you in regards to that. So please get involved on Instagram, Facebook, and let us know how you feel to be mentioned in next week's podcast. Well, that's been me this evening. Thank you very much for joining us again. We'll be the same next week with another guest, more news and more topics to discuss. Please get involved if you'd like to feature in the podcast in any way, whether it's via our questions, whether it's via some news you'd like to share from us and me to share, or whether you'd like to join on the podcast and have a discussion about something you're enthusiastic about or something you're interested in, or just to talk about yourself. This is a place to do that. If you want to talk about yourself and tell us how great you are, do it, because there's nothing against that. We need that. All you hear is people putting themselves down and what they're bad at and what we can't do. So come on the podcast, tell us how great you are, and we'll all agree with you. Thank you very much for listening. See you next week. It'll be great to have you join us. Take care. See you soon.